Um, well, while people are still filling in here, I'll just take a moment to welcome you to Empower Girls and Women through Soccer. This is part of a month-long programming that Dusk has been doing, in part to raise awareness about the programming that they do on and off the field, and in part connected to a month-long of fundraising to get to the goal of 75,000. As you can see on your screen, we're just past the 36,000 mark. So we've got a little bit further to go. So if you're feeling generous at the beginning of the evening or at the end of the evening, you can text DUSK to 44321 to make a contribution. And I'm sure there are many people on this who've already contributed to DUSK in ways that are financial and not. So start with a big thank you to you for being part of this DUSK community. I will start by introducing myself. I'm Amy Richards, and I am a part of the Dusk family, primarily as a parent. My children have been at Dusk for well over 10 years now, so I definitely consider myself embedded in this community, and I have grown with it, and it has grown with me. And the biggest change from when I started Dusk to now is that there's a girls program. They started in 2012, and now they serve over 1,000 girls a year, which is new. Dusk has been known as a boys club and an academy for many years. So tonight is kind of building on that reputation, and I would say even that success of extending that program to girls and boys equally. My investment in this evening is also Empower Girls and Women is something that I do professionally. I am a writer and a filmmaker, and the theme, the thread through everything I do is empowering girls and women. So it's thrilling for me to be a part of the conversation tonight. And my other connection is that I was once a soccer player, not as active anymore, but it's definitely something that informs my every single day, from my ability to work together on a team, which I think I do pretty successfully, to my ability to kind of amp up other people. Also, just a lifelong commitment to fitness and health, and that comes from sort of those early soccer. And I think most specifically to how I am professionally, it was on and through soccer that I really learned to be a leader and to advocate for myself and for others. When I played soccer, it feels like ancient times, but the girls had to wear the boys' old uniforms. And I remember very sort of innocently raising the question of, why is that? And having to fight for the girls to get their own uniforms. And then when I played college and soccer in college, I remember again sort of just innocently saying, why, when the girls are at away games, do we have to sleep 4 to a room? And when the boys are at away game, they sleep 2 to a room. So it kind of gave me my voice, playing sports and the advocacy around it. And I think that's true consistently. And it's definitely true of the people that you're going to meet as we get on in this program. I want to start by thanking the sponsors for this evening, ZH Water, Voice in Sports, and Deborah Miller Catering and Events. You can see their sponsorships right there. Thank you. As I've said, there's lots of people that have made this evening happen, including the back office at Dusk and their leadership, and all the family and friends of Dusk, and specifically these sponsors. So thank you so much for digging in extra on this event and making it possible. The goal of this evening is really simply to engage in a conversation around women and girls and sports, and who better to do that than people who are leading the way on women and girls sports. So the first person I'm going to welcome is Annie Eckstein, who is both a coach at Bronx Science, which is a public high school here in New York City, for those of you who don't know, and who's also a coach within the Dusk Academy. And Annie is, I'm sure, familiar already to many people who are watching tonight. I'm sure some of your families are here from generations ago, or from today. So Annie, thank you for being here, and thank you for the leadership that you show around this issue. And I think the first question I would just like to ask is, how did you get to be the head coach at Bronx Science, and how did soccer come into your life?
Well, thank you. I'm really honored to be here sharing the stage with everyone. And It's just been a pleasure to be a part of the Dusk community for the last few years. I've really enjoyed it. How did I become a coach at Bronx Science? I played in college, and when I played at Dartmouth, and our coach then was Steve Swanson, and he was very engaged in the community. I got to experience a little bit of coaching when I was in college. After I graduated, I worked in Washington, D.C., and was able to coach as an assistant for Georgetown for a couple of years. Really enjoyed it. And when I moved up to New York and started teaching and had more time, I started to see what ways I could get involved in soccer, playing and coaching. And I was actually coaching at a different high school, and we played against Bronx Science, and the coach was planning on leaving, and we had had several conversations, and he came up to me after a game and said, "Did you play in college?" And I was like, "Yes." So we talked, and it just sort of fell into my lap, to be honest. And I think I can say that, but I know that I did a lot of work around coaching and trying to educate myself in coaching and being involved, and that's sort of how it happened.
Great. And then so did my stories of having to wear the boys' old uniform sound familiar, and sleeping four to a room?
Yes and no. So when Steve was there, there was a great push. Bobby Clark was the men's coach, and I don't know how many people know who he is, but he went on to do some great things as well. And they had a real camaraderie to the two of them as coaches, and so the programs did as well. We did not have, I would say, the nicest uniforms, but they were ours. So we were fortunate in that. Yeah.
I have many more questions for Annie, but people who have questions, you can add them into the Q&A chat, and we will gather those and return at the end of the program to questions that you have been filtering in throughout the evening. Annie, I read lots of stories, and it's very consistent through people's biographies that it's often one coach or one teacher that makes a difference in someone's life. And I'm sure you've been that person. And how do you, as a coach, as a teacher, as a guide, instill in someone that belief that they can achieve something that might feel out of reach?
Sure. I will. Thank you. I had a coach in high school that pushed me. I was a goalkeeper. I started playing soccer when I was 10 in North Carolina, which is a huge state for women's soccer. I mean, I lived an hour and a half from Raleigh, where we had NC State, UNC, and Duke. And at that time, Mia Hamm was playing at UNC. So I got, get to see some huge quality games not that far away. But our coaching and club, we didn't even have a club. We had high school. But I had a coach in high school who started to tell me that I was good enough to make the national team. And he was wrong. But he started to get me to think that if I worked hard enough, maybe I could do that. And he had this belief in me, and he helped push me. And I tried out for the Olympic development team in North Carolina. I made that. I went to the regional team for a couple of years, to the tryouts, and ended up being seen by the coach at Dartmouth and a couple of other Division I schools. I got recruited. I fell in love with Dartmouth, and I never would have ended up playing college soccer and then probably coaching at the level that I have since, if he had not pushed me to this idea that really for most people is unrealistic. Like, if you look at the number of people who make the national team, the full national team, and now we have, younger national teams, which we really didn't have. Mia Hamm was on the national team at 16 because that's it. That was what you did. And I think that what I try to do is help these girls, like, ask themselves, what do you want? What do you want to accomplish? And if it's playing in college, if it's making the national team, then what do you have to do to sort of build up to get there? No one just walks on and is like, oh, you should be on the national team. That it comes with a lot of work. It comes with a lot of dedication and sacrifice. My parents, and I know that the parents of my players sacrifice a lot, for their girls to go out there and be able to have the opportunity to compete and get better. So I ask them what they want, and if I think that it's, even in the realm of possibility, I try to encourage them to do what they can to achieve it, because for me, at least, even if you don't get to that really high goal that you set for yourself, you're going to get further than if you had not set this goal.
Yeah, I wanted to be Nadia Comaneci, but I didn't reach that goal either.
Yes, right. He was telling me I could be like Michelle Akers, which I know, hopefully people out there know who that is. She was a fantastic player when I was growing up. I would say, just also to answer that question, I also encourage them to take risks. Losing is an important lesson in how you come back from that loss. If you're not willing to go out there and do something new, then you're not going to grow. And it's important that we grow. I like to help them grow as much as I possibly can.
And obviously that's true for boys and girls. And you both coach at the Dusk Academy, and then you coach at a high school that has programs for girls and boys. And do you see, here we are sitting in 2020, we have our first female vice president. Do you see there's a difference in how the programs are treated?
So I would say at the Bronx High School of Science, the girls program has a strong history of success, making the championship, I think six out of the last 10 years that I've been there, winning twice, losing in PKs once, making the quarterfinals, the semifinals. And we have that tradition of success, which really gives the girls a lot of sort of confidence. And we enjoy scrimmaging against the boys club, against the boys team at Bronx Science. And I think that there's a lot of respect there. I think that systemically, there's certainly a lot of difference in the way girl or female athletes are treated from male athletes. But I would say that at Bronx Science, I've really seen a lot of respect for the girls team there, and not a lack of respect for the boys, but certainly not, there's not this sense that the boys are better than.
Thank you, Annie. We're going to make you disappear a little bit and then come back for Q&A. We're going to continue the conversation with our friends at Sky Blue. And for those of you who don't know, Sky Blue is the New York, New Jersey metro area National Women's Soccer League. And we are welcomed by Elise LaHue, who is the general manager, and Freya Koom, who is the coach. And they're popping in here. And welcome. And the national, and they have something going on in their own league right now, which they can tell us about. Can you tell us just quickly, at least, what you're monitoring while we're having this conversation?
Yeah. First of all, sorry, it looks like I'm about to tell a ghost story. I don't know what's going on with my lighting at this hour of the night, but sorry to scare you all. We have an expansion draft. So there's a new team coming into the league next year, Louisville. And very sadly, they're plucking across all of our rosters right now. We do know our 2 players that are being selected. They haven't been announced yet, but yeah, it's been a long week. Pretty emotional for us going through that. You never want to lose any players, but this is just a part of the growth of the league.
So there are 9 teams across the National Women's Soccer League?
Yeah, Louisville will be number 10.
Number 10.
Yeah.
And do people still say what league?
I hope we're past that now. Yeah, I hope women's pro soccer, we've got the name down, NWSL. I think it's, we've had a lot more exposure over the last couple of years, some good broadcast deals. I don't know if anybody saw our games on CBS, on the big network. So it always helps to get that level of exposure so more people recognize the league and, know its name.
Yeah. And Freya, you came in 2019 to Sky Blue after a long history in England. You grew up somewhere between Oxford and London, and therefore from a country where I think soccer has it's fair to say, a much longer history. And so how are you finding it in America?
To be honest, it's been absolutely great. I think on the girls and women's side, then I think America has almost been a little bit more advanced than England in the past. I think England's playing catch up to where, you know, there's stories that we've been hearing tonight about the players and the role models growing up and, you know, watching the World Cup, whether it's Michelle Akers or whether it's Mia Hamm or someone, all those role models and stars that have been prevalent in the US for a number of years, where I think England have been playing catch up and hopefully will be more competitive with the US, you know, in the future. I think it's getting pretty close now. But I think on the whole, on the men's side, it's been a little bit behind. I think, you know, there's certainly more access to games and everything now, being able to watch it on TV, and especially if you're in California, having to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning to catch up with the Premier League, that's pretty dedicated and passionate, if you ask me. So, you know, I think on there we're catching up, but I think now it's just about everyone pushing the game forward in this country to get, you know, it up to where it needs to be, and that's the promotion of more of women's professional sports, women's youth sports, and getting them up to the level of men. So it's, you know, that competing for that pro sports rank, and then also having equality throughout the system.
Yeah, I just observationally, it is true that men's soccer is relatively new in America compared to the rest of the world. So I think you're right in that way. There's an advantage that girls and boys kind of came up with soccer in America together. So it's a little bit more ahead. And I can't remember the stat, but wasn't it that more people watched the last national women's game than watched the NBA finals? And, you know, it's definitely popular. And then, Elise, for you, so the MLS started in 1993, you know, jump ahead, you know, 13 years, the women's version started. And how, you know, the question I always get is, but girls' sports don't fill the seats the way that men's and boys' sports do. So as a GM, how do you respond to that question?
Yeah, I think you have to just start with the coverage, right? I mean, it's very basic for me. You know, go to ESPN and just scroll through. You can scroll probably for days before you're going to find any story about any women's sport. Maybe sometimes you'll get Serena Williams if there's a big, you know, big tennis event going on, but you got to scroll for days or look at Sports Center, any programming. So, you know, I've always said that we've done a pretty amazing job considering we typically get less than 4% of the media coverage. The numbers that we turn based on that is pretty astronomical. And I think that just shows the power of women's sports and the power of the leaders that are pushing these leagues forward. So I'm optimistic. I always say, you know, what the hell, go give me 10% and see what I can do with that. Sorry about that. I forgot there's young people on here. But, you know, give me a little bit, you know, double that percentage. That would be wild for us, you know, to see what we could do with that. So, you know, I'm optimistic, especially with some of these new broadcast deals, being able to reach a greater audience. And I think just with that, you know, we're kind of doing it in reverse. We're going on to the big broadcast channels, getting a bigger audience. Then I think media is going to be forced to cover us because there's a demand for it. And that's what we've started to see.
Yeah, I do think that it's in America, our coverage has been dominated by commercials. I mean, by shows and any sporting event, you know, it's why football's so popular is they have commercial breaks built into them, and soccer doesn't. It doesn't cater to that American market. But I do think that now there's so much more streaming opportunity, that there's not only an opportunity for soccer, sort of more specifically, but also sort of for women's soccer as much as men's soccer.
Yeah, absolutely.
One of the stories I particularly love and use a lot is Katherine Switzer. For those of you who don't know, she was the first documented woman to run the Boston Marathon in '67. And she got it in by registering just as KB Switzer. And she finished in '67 in 4 hours and 20 minutes. And the man that year finished in 2 hours and 15 minutes. Jump ahead 50 years. Women are finishing in 2:20, so they've gained 2 hours. Men, they've gained 2 minutes in 50 years. So given that women are here, how are you seeing, are women going to leapfrog ahead faster now that we've had the access?
Yeah, I mean, I'll leave Frey off the hook for all the media questions, but yeah, I mean, I think, you know, when we had the opportunity to be seen, you've seen these tremendous growth numbers. And even, you know, during COVID, obviously, this was a very difficult time for sports. We were the first professional sports league to come back and play and complete a bubble successfully. That doesn't get enough credit. I also think our league should really be commended. We were, you know, I think the only professional sports league that did not cut any salaries anywhere. That's really rare. Most men's leagues, you know, cut 10, 15%. We also told our players, hey, if you don't feel safe, sit out the whole year, we'll still pay you in full. So I think those are stories that actually have not been told enough about, you know, the efforts.
To do that, to pay players that didn't feel comfortable coming.
Yeah, we just said if you don't feel safe, this is your life. This is your health. If you don't feel safe coming under the parameters that we've given you, it's okay. There are zero hard feelings. And, you know, lucky I have a great coach in Freya that takes a humanity approach like I do. And we just said to our players, you know, you're people first, your players second. So if you don't feel comfortable coming, it's okay. But this was league-wide. It wasn't just Sky Blue. So it was a league-wide initiative. And there were players that chose to sit out, and that's okay. You know, there were no hard feelings about that. But I think there are a lot of things that our league doesn't get enough credit for because we just aren't covered enough. And there's these amazing stories there under the surface that are waiting to be told. So I do think as we took this opportunity to go be shown and be the first league back, it showed in our broadcast numbers. Our broadcast was up 493% from last year. Every other men's league is in the red. They've gone decreased in coverage, and we're over here like, you know, our bar chart is way off the other side of the page. So that's pretty cool to see. And the WNBA was the same. Theirs had gone up, I think, 10 or 15% this year. So, you know, women's sports, we came in, we took this opportunity, and, you know, I always say who's better, to lead COVID efforts and to manage us through all of this. We've seen, you know, women leaders in other countries have, you know, typically had better COVID rates. So it doesn't surprise me that women's leagues were able to come in during COVID and really try to, you know, create something good about it while retaining the humanity of the players and making sure that they were taken care of.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of the players, Freya, you have to motivate a team constantly, keep yourself motivated. I said I have to motivate 2 kids, and I find that a challenge. So you have many kids, and so you're down 3-5, and you've got 10 minutes left in the game. What do you say to your team?
Yeah, I think I'm very fortunate, to be honest, to be able to work with motivated athletes, you know, to get to be a pro soccer player where this is your career, this is your full-time job. These are players and people that are really highly motivated. To get there, they've been through the grind, and they've done everything possible to make it to the top. So usually it's not the motivation piece that they need help with. It's maybe that confirmation or the confidence in themselves to go and just to complete the challenge. So it's not that they're not motivated to do it, it's just maybe they lack that self-belief. So I think that's my job, is really to reinforce their sort of strengths and reinforce their good habits, and give them that confidence that they can keep pushing on and they keep grinding, and that the good success will come. And sometimes it might be providing that little direction. It might be that they can't get there on their own because they don't know which path to take. It's not that they're not motivated to take that path, but they're just not sure which direction. And then that's where hopefully some of my knowledge and some of my experience that I've accrued over the years, I can help provide them with that direction more so than that energy or that motivation to get there. So that's kind of how I look at it. I'm fortunate in that regard.
Is there something that a coach said to you years ago that you use with your players?
I don't think it's one particular thing that a coach has said. I think it's more about the coaches that I've respected have always kind of been the calm ones, that when things are getting tight or heated, they don't lose, you know, control or anything like that. And I think that's very much something that I try and do on the field as well, is to remain calm and just to, again, communicate to my players that I've still got that belief that they can do it, whatever that challenge is, and this is how we're going to go and do it. And to not get, you know, really overexcited if things are going well, and not, you know, hit the depths of despair if things aren't going so great. And sometimes you see that, and it's, you know, you can see coaches on the sideline, you know, really reacting to everything. And I think, you know, every kick of the game, and I don't think we necessarily need to do that. It's a lot of the time the momentum shifts so much in games. You could be having a really successful moment, and then the next minute you're really struggling and defending your own goal, or you miss a shot one end and then the opposition come and score. So I think it's, you know, important to just remain calm and see the game through.
Yeah, great. Elise, I read in an interview that you said, I think when you have more diversity in leadership, you're going to get different opinions at the table. And that's how you've gone about making sure that Sky Blue, whether it's in its fan base and its leadership, you know, is really as diverse as it possibly can be. And so in that management, you know, what can the rest of us do with that same message?
Yeah, I'm always scared when somebody says, I heard you say in an interview, because you never know what comes out of my mouth. So I wasn't sure where that was going to go, but luckily we drifted to a safe place there. Look, I think it's tremendously important. And if we're the club that represents New York City, New York, New Jersey, one of the most diverse and wonderful places on earth, on the planet in terms of diversity, then our club needs to reflect that. And, you know, I'll just be very honest. Soccer has, at least in this country and a lot of the pay to play models, has typically been very homogenous, kind of looks one way. And I think we have to make great strides to change that. And to me, it started with creating a really inclusive culture with our fans. And what I mean by that is just making them feel a part of the family, you know, bringing them into the mix, letting them have a say in the way the club works, and not just hearing them, but actually implementing it. So beyond just listening, but hearing, taking in what they're saying, and making them feel a part of the club. So we've been able to create a very welcoming environment with our fan base. And then the next phase for me was looking at our roster and going, okay, what is the makeup of our roster? And we want a diverse roster. I think that's absolutely integral to what we're doing. And now I'm looking at the front office, and I kind of look around, you know, like the screen like this, the Hollywood squares of all the people that are in the screen. And I'm going, ugh, we kind of all look the same. So next phase for me is actually, you know, I've got to practice what I preach and make sure that we're bringing people into roles that bring all different diverse backgrounds, that look different, that have different experiences, because that to me is the only way we're going to be able to innovate, is if you bring those people around the table. My experience is just my experience. I really need it from people from all different walks of life and different places. So that's kind of the next phase for me, is actually making our front office represent the diversity of this fantastic community that we live in.
Yeah, I mean, well, naming it is the first, you know, step towards change. So thank you for naming it and being that example. And I can't speak on behalf of Dust, but I do want to say thank you for letting us be a partner, a strategic partner with Sky Blue. And I know we get a lot out of that affiliation, even if it's just in name. So thank you to Sky Blue. Before I let you go, I will say that there's an 11-year-old. So, and if you lose a player in your expansion, she's available for you. So we
good.
Ready to fill in.
We already heard, I think 2 players have already left us. I was getting a lot of texts. So yeah, let us know. Drop us a name. We need it.
Well, we'll let you check your emails for a second. People can keep adding questions. We're going to let you go for a minute here, and we're going to bring our last guest on, and then we're going to bring everybody back. So people can still keep populating the Q&A chat there. And a reminder too, if you still want to make a donation, you can do that as well. But we're going to welcome our last guest, Melissa Ortiz. Melissa is a professional player, played on the Colombian team. She's also a social media influencer. I want that title. And she's an entrepreneur. She's in a relationship with an entrepreneur because she has these great soccer jerseys behind her that maybe she can tell us about as a starting place. Welcome, Melissa. So you want to tell us about your jerseys to start with?
What's that?
You want to tell us about your jerseys?
Oh, yeah, sure. Well, 2 things. One thing, this is actually my fiance's invention. So I'll move the camera up. He created all of this where you could literally display your jerseys and hang them up and roll them. So it's quite interesting. That's actually my first pro jersey right there from Iceland. But yeah, that's that. And then entrepreneurship. I'm starting a coffee company as well called Kickoff Coffee Company. It's a crossover between coffee and soccer, highlighting that, you know, highlighting the crossover between the region that the coffee that you're drinking with what the footballing culture is from. So I'm just starting that, just launching it. We just announced it a few weeks ago. So launch date should be within the next month or so. So there's the entrepreneurship part, the influencing that kind of just came upon me. Never set that up, but I'm happy because I get to work with all the big brands, and it's quite fun.
Yeah. You got to go into business with Jimmy Butler, who had his coffee business going during the NBA playoffs.
Well, what's funny about that is that when I first started the idea, before the NBA restarted, I have a friend that works for the NBA, and she was like, "Did you know that Jimmy Butler's doing this whole thing in the bubble?" I was like, no, let me check, because I don't really follow the NBA. So then I started checking. I was like, oh my gosh. And then as of recently, he's like actually launching it. I was like, well, I guess I'm onto something just in soccer then.
So taking you back, before you were a social media influencer, you were playing in Colombia. You lost your coach. They stopped paying you. Even when they were paying you, they were paying you $20 a day. And need I say, how were the boys being treated, or the men being treated?
Oh my gosh, like kings. There was always a huge difference. You know, I started playing on the Colombian national team in 2009, and it was U20s during the time. So many of us still played college soccer, so we couldn't really accept any major payment. So it wasn't a big deal for us then, although we knew that, you know, the men's U20s were getting paid. Fast forward a few more years and, you know, being on the full national team, they started paying us. And then once our Colombian Federation president got caught in the FIFA scandal, our new president came in. And when that new president came in, he just completely changed the whole structure, especially in the women's game. And went from receiving what was the $20 a day to absolutely nothing. And that's when we completely started this huge initiative, which started really from a teammate that spoke out in the media saying that we weren't receiving our bonuses from the 2015 Women's World Cup. But then about a year and a half ago, my teammate and I, we made this video that went completely viral, not only in Colombia, but globally as well. And they flew us over to Colombia. We did this live press conference. To this day, I say it's like a movie scene, swear, because it was like a huge conference room, just us athletes, our lawyers, like our actual like players union, and then all of the media. And we had all of this, proof of not only just the pay, but use uniforms, us paying for flights, international flights to go to camps, amongst many things. So long story short, they reinstated the pay, gave like a little bit of a raise. When I say a little bit, it's like nothing still. But yeah, to answer your question, that's the big difference between the men's, men's get first class flights on the national team. You know, we're obviously flying economy, but not just that, just the pay in general is the big issue, and the way that we were being treated. So it has gotten better over the past year and a half or 2 years since we spoke out, but it's still pretty sad.
But it's only getting better because people like you are brave enough to speak out. So thank you for that leadership. And even if it was directed at Colombia, it's an international problem. So other people are benefiting from your vocalizing. So thank you. You count, as you should, one of your successes going to the Olympics, and to outdo yourself, you scored in the first 3 minutes. And I heard you say, you use this great phrase that I like, that you outperform yourself. You clearly did that at that moment in the Olympics, that showing up at the Olympics wasn't amazing, but then you had to outperform yourself by scoring in the goal. Have you outperformed yourself recently?
Recently, well, I feel like maybe we all have outperformed ourselves this year. You know what I mean? I feel like this year has just been such a challenge, no matter what industry you're in. And, you know, maybe some industries are, of course, perhaps booming because of this, but it's still, you have to adapt to it, if you are booming. But for the majority of people, we're not booming, especially sports industry. And I'm not the only one. So I feel like with these challenges, you do outperform yourself, meaning you take yourself to a whole nother level. You know, you have to pivot, and really learn how to adapt in times like these. And I think this year, especially, more than ever, because I've had some pretty crazy, like, and awesome years where I have outperformed myself. But in terms of just like, mentally, I feel like this year was mentally harder than even going through an Achilles tendon tear, which I went through a few years ago, while playing. So I feel like this year, I have outperformed myself, meaning staying positive, constantly, whether it's being active on social media so that I get that fluidity and get the brand deals, of course, which I have. And then, of course, launching a new business, amongst many other things. And I think, if we all are going through this, and it's important that we stay, mentally strong and stay on the grind, as us in New York City do. So I think that's part of outperforming myself as of recent.
I found it so refreshing that you said, simply that you deserve to be treated equally. And that's not a radical statement in and of itself, but it's still an unfamiliar statement, especially for women to make. And so and of course, men are just as, I think, capable of feeling not deserving sometimes of that equal treatment. But I do think it's an amazing feat that you have not only said that you deserve it, but you have kind of made it so that everybody else should feel that way too. And particularly for sort of some of our younger, viewers today, how can you instill that sense of self in other people, or how can we instill it in ourselves? How did you get that?
Well, I always deep down inside of me throughout my years of playing with the national team, knew that something was wrong, that we were being undervalued. Absolutely. And, our national team by far is not the only one that deals with this. Obviously, U.S. women's national team deals with it on another level, but, many other federations around the world treat their women not equal whatsoever in terms of their pay gap, in terms of treatment, etc. So really, little by little, I feel like I kept on, I guess, swallowing like this bad vibe throughout the years. You kind of brush it off a little bit with going to Olympics, going through World Cups, and saying, oh, it's worth it. But at the end of the day, when you go through these tournaments and you realize that you're more than that in those moments, that's when you put two and two together and say it's time to really value yourself. So for me, it was when I did tear my Achilles 5 days before the Women's World Cup. That whole year for me was quite a challenge to come back and be back to the national team exactly a year later. That was my goal, and I did it. And when I got back, that's when I think like reality hit me and saying, many of us here that are female footballers have degrees. We have, undergraduate degrees. We have master's degree. I have a master's degree. And not only that, but we give our lives and our days and our bodies to this sport. And the way that we're being treated is just not correct. It's not right. We are equal to our counterparts, and we should be treated as so. And so that's when going through that injury for a year and giving it all I had and actually paying for my own trainers to get me back is when I really, came to terms and saying, okay, I had enough. So to the young, audience out there, it's all about using your voice. And I think that's what's so beautiful about this generation as well. And the platform that we're given too, and the leaders now that we also have, and the female leaders that we now have. It's quite interesting to see how women or even men can inspire and lift each other up and motivate each other, because when you're going through something, and say that we did in terms of inequality, it's quite motivating to see other people make that path for you and pave that road. So for the young listeners, it's about using your voice and fighting for what you believe in, and also anything is possible, and don't let anybody shove you down and say you're not valuable, because you are.
Well, thank you for being a great example, and your social media presence, for people who aren't already following you, they should, because you definitely evoke that in everything that you do. So thank you, Melissa. We're going to welcome back the panelists, so Annie and Freya, and we're going to, some of you have been populating questions. For those of you who want to do them now, we'll kind of turn this over to what you're thinking. I think I want to start with a question to Freya, but Annie would like you to jump in as well. Someone is asking, how do you come up with your training sessions?
That's a great question. A lot of it is based around what we need. Some is like developmental over a period of time. Some is a reaction to gains in terms of like some short term, we need to do this right now. And then it's just a lot of experience around providing what outcomes do we need to achieve, and then working backwards with what that session might look like. Some of it is sessions that we've done before, either myself or my assistant coaches, that they've had success with and have been good. Some of it, we'll go on and look at some other pro coaches, what kind of sessions they're delivering. We went and were fortunate enough to watch Red Bulls this year and watch their coach do a session. It was like, oh, I could take a piece of that, take a piece of that. So I think there's a lot of kind of seeing what other people are doing, what outcomes they're trying to hit, and then tweaking it to whatever we're working on that particular day, our objectives and our aims. So a big combination of factors.
Good. And Annie, how do you do your training sessions?
I would echo a lot of that. I would say that it's different for club versus high school. High school has a much shorter season, and I have practice every day or games every day. For the club, it's more intermittent, and you have to sort of take a longer view. I like to take a look at what we're looking to accomplish sort of over time and try to build to that as well. And try to also make it fun. I mean, the different level motivating the players is a big part of it. And sometimes the things that we do out there are not always going to be in the moment fun, but we try to sort of pepper it with some fun at least.
And I definitely agree with that. Even at the pro level, where there's a presumption that it's the player's job or the athlete's job, and it doesn't need to be fun because that's what they're paid to do. But it really does. Like having sessions that are fun and can get the players laughing, even though it could be super serious. Just having them, have a fun warm up before you get into some real nitty gritty match preparation, or just having a cool down where they can compete. And a lot of athletes will have fun by competing against each other. So having a level of competition in the training session is very important.
Elise, what is the pathway? This is another question to becoming a Sky Blue player. So you got that 11-year-old who's at Dusk. She's been at Dusk 3 years. What should she do next?
I should ask Freya that. Freya, what are you looking for in an 11-year-old to go out? Look, it's I think our system is pretty traditional in the US. You go to college, you get selected through the college draft. It's rare that players come out early from college. So, really the traditional path has been, you play for your club or your high school and you go to college. And then from there is where we really start the recruiting. I mean, obviously we're looking at younger players that we know, more particularly in the local area. And that's really important for Freya and I. You have to remember this is really the first kind of full season on the job for Freya. And I've only been in the job about 1.5 years. So, we're building everything from new in the way that we want to structure this club and what it looks like. So, we're looking at things from the ground up all the way, down to those very young players in single digits, all the way up through, a semi-pro team into the professionals, and how we can create a much more robust player pool, because we believe this is one of the greatest areas for talent in the entire world, not just in the US, but in the world. So, our roster should be full of players from New Jersey and New York because of the talent here. So we want to make sure that we're not missing any of them that are coming through the system.
And I think the biggest thing is it's going to be quite a long, hard journey. So you've got to love it. Going back to that fun factor, as an 11-year-old, you need to be enjoying it. You need to be excited to go to practice. You need to be able to love a ball. And every time you get an opportunity, you need to be doing extra with the ball, whether it's keep up or juggles or, shooting and touches. It's just having that love for the game that will allow you to get through those really hard moments of what it takes to be a pro.
That's true. Annie, a related question for you. For a high school player and that has their eye on playing in college, what's the timeline? How do you go about charting that course from a 9th grader, have your eye on college ball?
Sure. I think that if you want to play in college, you need to be playing club soccer. High school soccer, when I was growing up, was certainly competitive enough, and not everywhere had clubs. But, I think getting to camps is a big thing, getting seen by college coaches. So there's the being good enough, right? Where that's sort of what Freya was talking about, where you have to be working, you have to really want it. You have to be motivated to do the things when the coach is not telling you to do them, right? When someone's not looking, that you're doing the things that are going to make you better. But then you have to be seen, and you have to be seen in an environment that lets the coach know that you are coachable. Tournaments are a big thing. And I think it's true that, assistant coaches will go out to tournaments and they'll look through players, but they may only see a player for like 4 or 5 minutes or maybe 10. And even in that 10 minutes that they are watching that game with that player may only touch the ball, 5 or 6 times. And it's difficult to get a read. So my recommendation is definitely to get to a camp. If you are interested in a school, let the school know that you're interested. As a 9th grader, it's a long way kind of, but start to figure that out. Talk to, we have a great person here who works with the college process. Working with someone to sort of understand where you are and what your potential might be is a huge part of that.
And Dusk also does a lot for the players, for those who aren't already familiar with that process. And I also want to say, I mean, it's decades old, but I was not recruited. I got to Columbia. I kind of, made my presence known to the coach. And then I was a starting player, after my first year, and am still in great touch with my coach. So it pays off. So persistence can lead you there if it doesn't land you there directly. Melissa, a question for you from someone is, how do you balance this all? You've got businesses, you've got injuries you have to mend, you've got a social media presence. How do you do it and not get exhausted by it all?
I don't know. No. I wake up early. I always try to work out first thing in the morning. Just to get it out of the way, because I do like to still stay fit. And then apart from that, just between scheduling and then honestly, a lot of the things, although I wish I was better at scheduling and mapping out my day, a lot of the things I feel like I'm an octopus. So I'm just like, okay, as it comes, I do it. And just kind of trying to say yes to as many things possible, being that yes woman, and being fearless, I guess. But to best answer your question, it's I think what keeps me structured and in line is still being that athlete inside of me, which is that type of organization where you always have to set your goals and then commit to it. And then of course kicking off my day with coffee. So I guess there's my ad line right there, kick off coffee. And then that workout I guess keeps me in line as well. You
got to get the logo right behind you for the next conversation.
I know, right? Like banners flying. Yeah.
So Melissa, and then a similar question for Freya. When did you know you wanted to play soccer? Like, how did it start? I mean, you've got some young, yes, I'll start with you, Melissa. When did you know you wanted to play soccer?
My story's a little bit different because my parents immigrated from Colombia, and I was always playing soccer since a very young age. Started at AYSO, got into club soccer in South Florida. But then in high school, I decided I didn't want to play, although I was getting recruited and getting letters and stuff. I didn't really see a future in it, crazily. And I was going to go to Pratt Institute of Design here in New York City for architecture, had my portfolio submitted, got accepted, etc. But when it came down to the money and the other offers I was getting from some universities, my mom sat me aside and she goes, really think about these offers and the scholarship right now, because you'll be years in debt if you go to Pratt. So it came down to that actually. And it was the best decision I ever made in my life to play college soccer. And it wasn't on a big D1 program. It was a D2 called Lynn University in Boca Raton, Florida. And then after my first year, I was recruited to go to U Miami, D1 ACC. But because of the money that was offered, I stayed at Lynn, and it was amazing because I guess for me, I like to be the big fish in a small pond. And it really gave me the opportunity to grow. And I feel like, although I knew from a young age that I loved playing soccer, and it's always been my passion, I feel like after my first year of college soccer, of excelling, of being the best in the conference and all that, and joining, the youth national team of Colombia, that really grew my passion tremendously. And it was in that moment that I said, okay, I want to go pro in 3 or 4 years when I graduate. And that's where it all really, really, really started.
Freya, you were a player and now you're a coach, and I don't know if you always had your eyes on being a coach, but there's a question of, from a coach, how do you get to be you? How do you get to be a coach at your level?
Yeah, so I think the biggest one for me was how I started playing and, having a real passion for the game. So my first day in primary school when I was 6 or 7, I think, I turned up and all the boys were playing football on the grass over there, and then all the girls, I kid you not, were making necklaces out of flowers on the playground the other side. And I was like, I think that looks more fun. So that was my first introduction to football, and I never stopped. I fell in love with the game, and I think it's something that I've had other careers. I've coached part-time, and I was a lecturer at a university full-time, but I could never completely step away from the game. And I was either playing all the time or looking for games or coaching all weekend in my in my spare time when I had my university degree job. And I love the game, and I can't be apart from the game. So I think having that passion is something that drove me. And then I was involved in working with Reading Football Club as a part-time coach. It was something I picked up at university when I was studying sports science, and we were asked to take a coaching qualification as part of one of our sports modules. And for me, it was obviously I wanted to take it in football or soccer. So I took that module, and then that was it. I was like, oh, okay, this is quite fun, and I can make people better, and especially like the little kids, because I was quite young at the time, and I can really make a difference. And I began doing it part-time, and then it was like, oh, actually, this is great. And it took up more and more of my time. And I was at Reading, and I think I want to go to America. There seems to be a greater opportunity there for coaching in the female game, and especially for female coaches. So, and this was, 6 or 7 years ago, so a lot's changed in England now. But that was really the opportunity for me, and come over here and do it full time, and really make it my passion and my career. So I did that. And then I actually came in to get the Sky Blue job. I was coaching in a girls' academy in New York. And I actually came into Sky Blue to observe a session. And it was a time where they were a little bit short-handed. And I kind of was going to observe the coach at the time. And then it was like, oh, actually, would you mind doing this? And can you just play those balls in for this passing drill? And would you mind like helping out that player there? And I did a little bit more. And then that was enough, I think, for Elise to like, oh, can you come and help out a bit more. And then I was able to come and get the full-time job, which was nice. But the scary thing for me is as part of that story, and I came in to observe, and within a few days I found myself on a plane to Portland to go and coach one of the games, the league games there. So the Sky Blue flew me out to Portland, and Portland, for those of you that don't know, has the biggest stadium and the biggest crowd in the league. So that night, I think there was 19,000 people there in the crowd, and everyone was just screaming and cheering, and it was super loud. We were 1-0 down, and then we drew the game 1-1. We got a goal back, so our players were elated. And that was a Saturday night. So that was my first introduction to the league, and it was like nothing I'd ever known. Like usually I coach against a couple of parents in the crowd, and that kind of thing. So this was amazing. And then a quick dose back to reality as I flew back from Portland back to my day job and coached summer camps and took the 5-year-olds to the bathroom first thing on Monday morning. So that was nice. That was like a real dose of reality back again. But fortunately, Elise gave me another call, and I was able to come back in.
That's a great story. Elise, what's your version of that story? How, if we don't want Freya out of a job, but if we want you to hire us, what do we do?
Well, I'm still amused by her, going back to her daily life the week later. But yeah, it's been great having Freya here. I don't think there's any myth about where Sky Blue was at. When I came in, it was kind of in a relatively troubled state. So, I took over, and it was a little bit of a survival mode, and ended up without a head coach and kind of scrambling along. I still couldn't tell you where Freya came from, but one day she was at training, and players were like, oh, she's all right, like kind of calming the ship here. So I was like, well, that's exactly what I need. So why don't you just come to Portland with us, have a nice weekend. So she showed up, and it worked out pretty well. So I just was convincing her to drive down to where we were training and come back for the last few weeks of season. And, I think Freya came in, kind of put her in the interim position there to help us ride out the season. It went really well. So Freya was kind of tops of the list, but like all good GMs, you got to open up any coaching position you have, make sure you're not missing anybody. But when it came down to it, I think Freya was the right choice for us to continue leading the team. But it's important to go through that process. So, Freya went through it like everybody else did. She wasn't, just didn't come out of the woodwork or wasn't a friend of a friend. She went through the process. I didn't know her before that day she showed up at training. And, we've been having a pretty good ride ever since. Took the team to the playoffs for the first time since 2013. So things are going pretty well overall. Good job, Freya.
Thanks.
So there's a question about, for you, Elise, how likely is it that the women's national teams could demand wages equal to the men's teams?
Demand wages? Well, I think they're doing that now. If you're talking about at the club level, that's a little different. But at the national team level, I think that's what the lawsuits are doing right now. So, Godspeed to them in that process. I think, it's right of them to ask for that. And obviously they've done very well. They've done well for this country. And we've seen so many other federations around the world that are now offering equal pay. Some there's a little caveat, you know, I think England offered it, but there was a little caveat in there that you have to really look at the small print. But, you know, there's some federations around the world that are setting the standard now. And the way I look at it, the US is behind, and we should not be behind in women's soccer. That's ridiculous to me. So we're getting left behind. And I think, you know, hopefully with some adjustment and leadership, hopefully at US Soccer, they'll, you know, kind of get on board with what a lot of other federations around the world are doing and just do the right thing.
That's great. And then Elise, another question for you about the commitment you've made to diversity and having it in the office. What are some of the steps that is there a tangible step that you're taking?
Yeah, I mean, I think it starts for just making sure, one, that the front office, that we do a lot of diversity, equity, inclusion training. So D&I training is really important to me. That's something that I've done in the past. And I think it's important for my staff to, until you really like step into it and are willing to take that learning process, or we often say an unlearning process. So you kind of don't know the things you don't realize that you just take for granted. So going through that process, I think, is really important for our front office. So that's, you know, our front office staff and our technical staff. These are things that we're going to be doing, you know, over the coming months as we lead into next year. And then I think I've always said that to have a greater diversity of candidates that apply to our jobs, you have to look like a safe place to work. You have to look like a place that would hire diverse individuals. So if we look very homogenous, and I can use the NWSL as an example, Freya's the only woman head coach out of 10 teams. That is a diabolically bad number, bad number. So if I'm a woman looking at the NWSL and a job comes open, am I going to apply? I'd probably look around and go, well, my odds are not very good about getting this, so I'm going to skip that. I'll go coach in college or somewhere else. We have to create an environment where you see other people like yourself working. So, you know, whether that's, you know, you're Black or you're Latino, you don't see that in my front office right now. So I'm the first one to say that. We have to take those steps to change that, to make it look like a place where we're going to get more applicants that are more diverse coming to the table, you know, whether it's a woman head coach or, you know, whether it's, you know, more diverse people at the table within the front office. I think we have to create the environment. So it starts with me as a leader to start doing that.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you for your leadership, and that goes beyond the NWSL. So I have one wrap-up question for Annie. I'll go Annie, Freya, and then Melissa. Somebody is asking, what's the skill drill that will really help us improve? Annie, what's your skill drill?
Like on the ball skills, I think that many players are getting really so much better on the ball. Weak foot, if you have ever played for me, you know that I really require a lot of weak foot work because it's not what we're comfortable with. But I would even go beyond just like an individual skill. If you want to be a great player, it's your off the ball movement and your off the ball work that's going to get you into a position that other players aren't going to get into when your team is possessing the ball. At least, you know, defense is always a big thing too, as a goalkeeper, I would say. But it's that watching games at a higher level and finding the runs that someone is making off the ball that enable them to get open, as much as really anything that they do on the ball.
Freya?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's hard to put down to just one drill, but I think the biggest thing for me is you've got to have a level of ball comfort, but find out what kind of player you are and then be the very best at that type of player that you can be. So kind of work out who you are, whether you're more of like a defensive player than what you really enjoy and strive for is like making those big tackles, winning the ball, shutting out people, whether you're that creative midfielder that likes to dribble, whether you're a forward that, you know, likes to really take players on and put it in the top corner, is understand who you are and then be the best that you can be at that. I think sometimes we try and get all-round players and we try and get good at everything, and there is a level of competency where you have to be able to pass a ball, you have to be able to have good touches, dribble, turn, but find one thing and be really, really, really good at it so that that's your thing, and then a coach will pick you because of that, and where you fit the system. And it might not be a fit for every single coach, but where you find that one that fits, then that's the best thing for me.
That's great. And Melissa?
I think with what Annie said and Freya said, it's absolutely perfect. Just to kind of plug into that and what Freya said, it's pick one thing and excel at it. As growing up, I was a striker, and I usually had like 2 to 3 go-to moves that I perfected and would work. And you see that amongst like top pros. I mean, we'll just throw out Cristiano Ronaldo out there. You know, he has his chop and he has his double scissors move, which are perfect for him. You know, even Marta had her chop and her cut, go to the line, sell out. So they have, you know, professionals or even top college players, you have your selection. And I feel like it's like a place that, like a FIFA game where, you know, you memorize your 3 or 4 skills on your PlayStation stick or on your controller, and you excel at them. So I think for me that was huge, especially times right now, using the wall as much as possible to get as many touches. And then for me growing up, I was constantly playing, and I don't mean, you know, organized 11 aside. No, like this was, you know, kind of street soccer, pickup. You know, I grew up in South Florida, so it was a big Latino community. So I was constantly playing with the guys, with the boys in the community. So it's just constantly just getting as many touches as the ball, and then also watching soccer, which I think nowadays it's beautiful to see how many young girls are continuing to watch. Now, of course, you know, NWSL being aired. Now FAWSL is now going to be broadcasted on NBC Sports this weekend. There's huge matchups. So it's also watching the game, watching the higher level, and learning from that and taking notes. Those are all things that I grew up doing. I think because my older brothers always were just around. And back then many girls just didn't do it, but now you see more girls watching soccer, playing FIFA as well, which I think is a huge help in visualization. So many things, but those are my top.
Well, thank you. We're just over our hour mark. So I just want to, on behalf of Dusk, thank you all for joining us and for your leadership on and off the field. So I feel like we have some homework. We have to watch soccer, watch. We got to buy tickets to some Sky Blue games. We got to drink coffee. And we got to work on our skills. And for those of you who are already supporting Dusk, thank you for that. And thank you for your continued support. There's ways here. We can look at Josh's inbox, but here's upcoming activities and donations. There's an auction happening, raffle happening. We'd like to get to our 75K goal. We're a little bit less than halfway there. So hopefully those of you who feel inspired can make a donation, and you can tune in next Thursday, the 19th, for the next activity. So thank you for all of you for joining us, and thank you particularly for those who I feel very fortunate to have been in conversation with. Thank you, and to the next convening. Okay, good night, everybody.